important topic. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Tracy Walter. I'm the President and CEO here at the Chamber. I do see we have Don Gallagher-Murphy from Christine Elliott's office on the line, our MPP. And we have Sarah Campbell from MP Van Bynen's office as well, I see. And Councillor Broom, Kelly Broom, is on the line as well.
And we are recording the first portion of this session.
Thanks, Tyler. Yes, that's a good reminder. So if everybody could just mute their microphones unless they have a question throughout the panel piece. And I would like to welcome our panelists, Jim Van Dusen, who is our board chair and also the COO at NewRoads Automotive Group, Chris Emanuel from Treefrog, and Jennifer MacLachlan from Cachet Supper Club. Do I have Abdus on the line? I didn't see if Abdus is not. Okay, so from an advocacy perspective, we'll look at that a little bit later. I think in the interest of time, I'm going to turn it over to Jim Van Dusen first. So NewRoads, Jim, has been in various stages of open throughout all of this. You've been adjusting operations and staffing as well as health and safety measures all along. Can you tell us about that and sort of what you've learned and what tips might be good to share? I know you have a presentation for us as well.
Yeah, really happy to. I spent a little bit of time last night and kind of whipped together a presentation with some general thoughts. But as Tracy mentioned, for us, it has been an adventure, that's for sure. We were fully open for a bit, then fully closed. Then our service departments were open, but our sales departments were closed. Then we were able to sell cars online, but we had to deal with a whole bunch of legal issues, whether we could bring customers and test drive them and all these kinds of things in a mess. And now we're fully open again. So it's been a bit of an adventure. And we've spent literally, weeks of time, a team of us sort of helping develop processes and things in place to make sure we can function. So I just, if I can get my presentation up here, I think it should be. Can you guys see the presentation?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So I'll just sort of chat along. First of all, I have a disclaimer. We're all different. We all have different business needs and objectives, different number of employees, so on and so forth. So I'm just going to share sort of our view and some general thoughts and things that have worked for us. Pick what you like, discard what you see of no value. I don't take any of it personally. My goal is really just to get you thinking and challenge yourself on how we can go about doing this. Plan is the first thing that I would say. We've spent so many hours planning, and even then it doesn't seem to be enough. There's always something that falls through the cracks so that we're readjusting for. So, excuse me, I would suggest planning and documenting everything you have for your employees so that they can remember what to do because this is all change. For your customers, creating a process that they can be comfortable with, whether it's health and safety inspectors, ministry inspectors, lawyers, if you end up getting sued by somebody down the road. The more you have documented, I think the safer you're going to be. Remember, this is implementing a new process. And some of the old processes that for some of us we've had, they've been in place for decades. So considering changing rapidly as quickly as we are and pivoting to put new processes in place can be really challenging. And certainly remember that this is change and change is hard. Every strategy that you've ever employed as an entrepreneur to deal with change and handle change, get ready to use them because you're going to need all those skills. I would suggest that and from our approach, every decision we made, we look back to how it would impact these 5 key areas. Excuse me. How is it going to impact the employees? How is it going to impact our customers? What do the optics look like from what we're doing? How does it impact our marketing and our ability to showcase that we're here and that we're available for sale of products and services? How do we deliver on the product or service? And then how does it impact our expenses? So those are all sort of 5 things in every decision we made. And I think as an entrepreneur, those are key things you should be looking at each step of the way. And I'll talk to a little bit of those from different angles. Safety is certainly priority number 1 from our perspective. That's where it all starts. It's where comfort level is created for customers, comfort level for employees to come back and work and be in the workplace. And we use that in our marketing and other approaches. But I would suggest you get familiar with whatever the government is recommending for your industry. Carol, if anybody was attended Friday's session, did a great session from a legal perspective of how important it is to be in line with what your industry is doing. And then I would suggest, hey, we're all out and about. Some of the ideas that we came up with we got from some of the grocery stores and others who were said, hey, that's a good idea what they're doing. So don't be afraid to steal other ideas that seem to be functional for your business. Then I would suggest you think it through carefully, step by step, how each decision you make related to safety is going to impact those 5 key areas that we just spoke about, how it's going to impact the employees, the customers, and so on. And then once you sort of set a benchmark, what our goal was just to be better than the best, find ways to notch it up and look a little bit better than what our competitors are looking like. So from a safety perspective, depending on size, complexity, there's different approaches for different areas. And what I mean by that is not only are businesses different, but inside business units are different. So for us at the dealership level, we've got service departments, we have parts department, we have sales department. How we decided to treat all those were very, very different. We made a decision to avoid what we call cross-contamination in the dealerships. And so from service, sales, parts, and accounting, we separated them all. We actually put dividers between whether it's physical boxes or a car or something to physically divide the spaces. And then we put trays to be able to pass information back and forth. So this allows that the less people that are interacting, the less chance that people are going to get sick. It's just a percentage game, and allows to make sure that if somebody did happen to get sick in one area, so they haven't sort of spent the whole time crossing through all the other departments and potentially getting many other people sick. And then from our standpoint, Michael, Croxton, myself, a few of us that travel between all the stores, we've stopped doing that. We stopped that back in middle of March, and we do everything via Zoom. So with the exception of a couple of locations, the main GM store location here in Newmarket and my dealership that I own in Ajax, those are the only 2 facilities that I'm going in and out of regularly. Because God forbid if I was to get sick and then I'm traveling through all these other stores, we could get everybody sick and it could be a nightmare. So, I would think about that sort of cross-contamination stage if I were you. Protect and isolate from outsiders where possible. Depending on your business, there may be places where you have no choice. So on the sales side in our business, we have no choice. We have to interact face-to-face with customers. Yes, we can do a lot of it online, but we need to be prepared to if a customer wants to engage with us that way. On the service and parts side, we realized that we could isolate the entire service team, keep the technicians separated from outsiders, from customers, and the service advisors as well that are used to greeting customers. We've set up processes with tables and guards and all kinds of sanitation things, plastic bags to hold keys and such outside. And so customers begin the process online if they're able to, and they print a check-in form online. So it's not something else that somebody's touched. They bring that, they check in at a table outside of the dealership out front, and then the service advisors call them right away. And everything's done really basically touchless service. If they start the process online, they don't have to touch anything at all as far as dropping their car off and getting it into our service department. But what that does is keep, again, from a percentage game, those people in that area of our business completely isolated from outsiders with the exception of 1 or 2 people who work outside. Obviously, if you work from home if possible, you may have some people that can, some people can't. Our business doesn't work that well, although we have some, probably maybe 1 in 20 or less in our organization can work from home, but those people are. Use of technology, even within your business. So I don't know how many of you were using Zoom prior to this whole pandemic kicking in. I wasn't using it as a regular thing. I was doing a lot of face-to-face meetings, but we've been able to adjust and use Zoom even within dealerships. Our parts manager could have a Zoom call with the service manager and the general manager, and they may only be about 15 yards away from each other inside the same building. But again, we're doing everything we can to lower the interactions we have with customers. The less one interacts face-to-face with people, obviously, the lower the percentage chance you're going to get sick. When we think about safety, how do we execute? So we have to define processes, which I mentioned earlier. You got to write them down, post them, do whatever you need to do to make sure that they're visible and that they're top of mind of everybody. Because again, it comes back to that change process. Equipment and supplies. People can maybe ask some questions later about that, but making sure you have the kind of supplies that you need readily available to keep clean, hand sanitizers, guards, all those types of things. And then positive energy. And I'm not kidding, as I said here, your employees and your customers need to feel you lead at this point in time. It's so easy to get negative. It's so easy to get sidetracked and distracted. Even for me, and I'm a pretty focused guy, sometimes I start thinking about Trump and I just go completely sideways. So there are so many distractions. So I would encourage everybody to make sure that you bring your A game when you're trying to reopen and make sure you're being positive, for your employees and for your customers. They need to see that. They need to feel that. Some examples of things, some of the things that we've done, you will have seen in some facilities where they put floor stickers and say, 6 feet apart, and that works very functional in some organizations and some facilities. In our facilities, what we decided to do was tape out spaces on the floor, create workstations outside of the offices, because all of our offices have glass and people touch the glass, and it's all kinds of places where people could spread, and it becomes so much harder to clean. So what we did was we taped out 4 or 5 stations, depending on the size of the dealership, where customers come in, check in, and could only go inside the tape to that station. It allows us to have much more control over our cleaning process, have a documented cleaning process, have a safety and a cleaning checklist. We have one that we use. It's fairly detailed, and it's every week we go through that to make sure everybody's staying on top of things. But depending on your environment, you may want to even do that daily. We have controlled access for our dealership and sales. On the service and parts side, we don't let them in at all, so it's very controlled with a table outside. And then on the sales side, we're fully open, so people can just show up. But we have a check-in table, and there's a questionnaire there that we capture some information, and we actually log them in case we have a health issue and we have to track people down. There's hand sanitizers, there's masks that we can provide to customers if they choose to use them. But it's a very controlled environment. Some environments may not work to be able to do that, but for us, we're able to. It allows us, again, to keep control over the cleaning, keep control over who's going where within the facility. And then external access only. We've been able to keep our service parts and accounting departments completely separated from external people. And that we feel will help us from a percentage standpoint. Think about what we call no-touch service. Can you do it, or how close can you get to it? So the biggest issue here is touching things, whether you're touching a pen or you're touching a door handle or those types of things. How can you get away with creating an environment where there's no touch or very little touch in the services that you're providing? Again, easier for some, harder for others, but that's what consumers, we feel, are looking for. We use plastic bags for a variety of different things. It's amazing what you can do with a plastic bag. You can insert it over your hand. You could reach out, you can take something and pull the bag back over it, and particularly an item that you're going to give back to them. For us, in that case, it's keys. So everybody that comes to drop their car off, or we're getting an appraisal done on the car, we got to touch their keys. So rather than putting it in our hand, we just take it in the bag, they have the customer drop it in the bag. 90% of vehicles have remotes now, so we're able to click it right through the bag and never actually have to physically touch their keys. So that works for us from a safety standpoint in case the customer had it, but it also keeps the customer safe, and it's a really sort of a nice marketing piece as well. Can any of your process be completed online? Are there forms? Are there order forms? What we're finding is our business in some ways is streamlined. More and more customers are doing it online, so the customers that we are engaging with, they're already farther down the process. Our closing rates are way higher, and our overall performance seems to be working very well. It's just not as busy, of course, as what we would like it to be. Desk shields, vehicle dividers. So in our cars, if you have any sort of delivery type, or you have people you have to move around in your business, there's dividers that you can get, sort of these plastic dividers that separate the back seat and the front seat. The plastic mask, material masks. We've now ordered some. We'll have them shortly. We're going to have branded NewRoads and Dusen masks with our logos right on them, and they're reusable masks, and we've ordered hundreds of them. Some we can give away to customers, and some that we can use ourselves. So again, trying to find a way to turn safety into a marketing approach as well. Some other examples, hours, creating a safety culture, designated champion. Got to remember to review it constantly. Having tap for Visa debit machines or online payment solutions. If you don't, and you don't want to upgrade your items, what you may want to do is use Q-tips. So we found that very functional. If you have to push buttons, you can provide Q-tips for people to push, and they just go in the garbage right afterwards, and they don't actually have to touch anything. We have, pens are big in our business, so we have dirty and clean containers that are marked, very well marked, so somebody knows to take one out of the clean one, and when they're done, they put it back into the other one, and then we just spray them all down. Optics, I just want to move away from safety a little bit into the optics, although safety drives all the way through, but I would suggest that optics matter more today than ever. Providing safety is mostly positive, or at least neutral. We have the odd customer who gets irate and thinks that this whole thing is a joke and it's stupid, but that is a very, very small number, and in most cases, it hasn't been much of an issue. Question that I have for you when it relates to optics, do you want to do all this work and do the energy, or do you want to be in a position where maybe you're splattered online or in the news with a poor showing with no social distancing? If somebody grabs a picture and there's 10 people all standing inside your environment within a couple of feet of each other, that could prove to be very negative against your business. And what about a work stoppage if an employee doesn't feel safe? That could interrupt your business. And do you want to be the business that actually got shut down? I'll be honest, that's one of my biggest fears, that if one of our dealerships was to get shut down and it sort of ran rampant, that we had an outbreak and 5 or 6 or 7 people got it, there will be a lot of people that will not return to that facility for a very, very long time. So this is why we think this is also critical. From a marketing standpoint, I think you need to be sensitive. You need to be thinking about how your products can help in this sort of COVID way. Coming out too aggressive doesn't appear to be working for those that are trying to do that, but more sensitive to people's financial issues and health and safety issues. But do remember that people love deals. Do remember that people love great value. What you want to do is be able to provide confidence to consumers to come and enjoy your service or your product. And that's related to being helpful to them and caring and adding value, but also this new piece of safety and making sure it's really safe for them. And also show that you're giving back. Some may have seen the lawn sign program that we're doing, but NewRoads, we try and give back in a variety of ways, but that also helps people endear themselves to you. Marketing, videos, use videos, and they don't have to be super professional. They don't have to be super hard. They can be fairly easy, but I would suggest you use videos. Understand your online presence. Customers are home more, they're looking online more, they're not going out as much at night. People are online, so you need to be able to have an amazing online presence. Put energy into that. Use social media, show that you're involved in helping others and to drive some of your safety procedures. Google reviews, having people praise what you're doing currently now today is more and more relevant. People may look at reviews from 6 months ago. You want to have them constant, and you want people to say, oh yeah, look at people are still enjoying using their service in their business and they felt safe and those kinds of things. So encourage that. And if slow, one of the things we found, depending on your business, and our business in some areas is a little bit slow, it's just calling, our existing customer base and ask how they're doing. All you're doing is you may generate something today, but you're also setting yourself up that you were somebody that actually cared about them beyond whether you're selling a product to them today or not. Do they know that you're open? What are things that got you on the map originally? Think about connecting to your needs and wants and experiences. Like always, that's how you sell products. Providing confidence to buy. Expenses, want to move to that. We're talking about spending more in some areas, but I would suggest line by line, go through every expense you have in the organization and cut everything you can. Leverage the wave subsidy if applicable, but avoid dependency because it's not going to be here forever. Find a way to set yourself up to wean off. And the one way to be able to do that is control your expenses and start cutting. So after you've cut a whole bunch, I'd suggest you go back and then cut a little bit more. People are finding, while it takes a little bit longer, you can do more with less. It's one of our experiences. Some of our best people are the ones we brought back first, and they were creating output 3 times what we used to have with, I'll say, more sort of average workers. So leverage the best people that you have. Ready to change is some final thoughts, pivot. Look for how we can do things as to why we can't. There'll be lots of people potentially in your company or organization coming up with reasons why they can't do things. Come with that approach of, hey, how are we going to do it? How can we achieve it? Because there are ways to do it. Look for opportunities to provide better service and make it even easier for your business, your customers to do business with you, such as using more online approaches. And celebrate the little wins with your teams. Motivation is key through all of this. That's my little spiel. Hope it wasn't too long. Open for questions if there are any, I guess.
Yeah, I think what we'll do, thanks, Jim. That was a lot of information. It was good, not just from a perspective of thinking about the safety options, but from a strategic standpoint as well, which is, I think, really great. I think we'll leave the questions for the end because I know that there'll be a lot for the 3 of you. I'd just like to kind of switch over to Chris Emanuel from Treefrog. So Treefrog has put together an extensive, well thought out plan for reopening. And once you're given the okay to re-enter, it's focused on health and safety, and well-being. I also thought it was really interesting on the mental health was really taken into account, the mental health of your employees. So can you tell us a bit about that, Chris? Is Chris muted?
Chris, we think you're muted.
Are we good?
There, now I can hear you.
Perfect. And can you see my presentation okay?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, thanks so much. Tracy, you kind of indicated we've put a lot of thought into our back to work strategy, and like Jim said, there are going to be some things that can apply to other companies and some things that aren't. We are about a 25-person office, and we were able to make a shift to work from home pretty seamlessly, which is good for a technology company. You want to hear that, but a big focus. And I'll talk to both physical and mental health, is the mental health component, because we recognize that we are nothing without our staff as a service industry, that we need to make sure that they are not just physically well, but mentally able to do great work and service our clients. And so we care about them. We're like a family at Treefrog, and that's been a major focus in developing this plan. And part of why we developed this plan, we actually developed it weeks ago, shared it with our staff, got feedback, because we want to be uber transparent about how we plan to operate over the coming weeks, months, et cetera, because there's a lot of uncertainty out there. So the biggest key for us right now, and not every company can do this, but the day that the province of Ontario permits us to be fully operational in our office, whatever that may look like, when that may be, we are going to give our staff actually a 60-day period, and these timelines are all subject to change based on the environment. But we recognize that staff that have not been commuting for the past few months, that have, their commute's been going downstairs, some not even showering every morning. Like, it's the reality that we all know. They're juggling kids sometimes, they're doing homeschooling, they're working at night, they're working different hours. It's going to be, you can't just simply flip a switch. And I've talked to friends that work in mental health that if we just flipped a switch, they're going to face burnout. And that, again, some companies don't have that luxury, we do. But for a 60-day period, we're going to let our staff choose where they work from. They can come in a day a week, they can come in 3 days a week, they can, as long as there's some predictability. We don't want just, to be unknown. But part of why we're able to do this is that for that 60-day period too, we're not going to be having internal client meetings, and primarily our activities will take place over Zoom. So we have a daily huddle, for instance, at 10 a.m. every day, where we talk about focus for the day, the week, et cetera. Even those that are in the office, they'll be at their desks. We'll do it all via Zoom. We want to make sure that over this 60-day transition period, that people are able to adjust on their own pace and on their own schedule, because not everyone is the same. And we think this will help us from a mental health standpoint. So physical health is obviously important as well. So we've also reminded everyone kind of the key symptoms that they have if they've got COVID. We do not want people coming into work if they feel sick. We have very clear policies on this, and for what Jim was saying, you want to document everything. And so we have very clear policies. This is the PowerPoint, but we have a detailed policy document that we've shared with our staff as well. So we're reminding people to let us know, to myself or Sean, if they're sick. Then we'll talk about what return to work looks like. So for instance, if they've just got a migraine, obviously returning to work is going to be take less analysis than, say, if they had symptoms. So we've talked about how they would get tested, et cetera, because we are a family, and like you wouldn't want to transmit COVID to a family member, we don't want it spreading throughout our office. We're providing a laser digital thermometer for our staff. There'll be one at reception, one in our lunchroom, so that they'll have access to check their temperature. Masks are being provided for voluntary usage in most cases. There are some cases where they would be mandatory if someone has returned to work. I will say a bit of a shout out to Barbara Quapis. We've done our best to try and support local organizations and what she has done to raise money, I think, for In From the Cold is amazing. So she's made us green Treefrog masks for our staff to use. So we want them there. We don't want our staff thinking about how to prepare as much as, but we want to make it as easy as possible. So there'll be a supply that they'll be able to draw from and take their mask out of that. Physical distancing, we've gone through, there are some workspaces in our office that are not 6 feet apart. So we've advised those staff they need to look at where they move in our office. We do have a big enough office that we can accommodate everyone. But these are things you need to think of in advance, creating barriers, things like that, if you're dealing with the public. I've also created a bit of a checklist that I'm happy to provide after. It's in an article I wrote. Also, we have a number of meeting rooms, and even though clients won't be permitted in the office for at least a 60-day period, our staff will still, those that are in the office may still want to meet in person. But we want to have clear guidelines on how close they can be, but also capacities on those rooms. So we have one large meeting room that can normally fit like 15 people. We've set the capacity at 4 people. Other meeting rooms are 2 or 3 people. And that just, it's abundantly clear as they enter a room on the door that, or just outside the door, because the doors are all open. Those are also things we're conscious of, that what the capacity is. We want to people put as little thought into this as possible and just demonstrate what those capacities are. As indicated, the only people that would be permitted that are not Treefrog staff are couriers. We'd accept those at the door. Also, hand sanitizer, we're making sure it's in every meeting room, every workstation. We used Market Brewery, who adapted their organization quickly to produce that. So we've got that placed throughout the office. We don't want our staff to even think about bringing anything in. They'll all have their private supply at their desks, and again, washrooms, etc. We're also providing them disinfectant wipes in all the areas. We're requiring that they clean their workstations at the end of every day. Also, anytime they leave a meeting room or touch any common surface, they do have a requirement to clean it. And we just need everyone to kind of self-police that. And again, it's about looking out for each other. And we've tasked our cleaner with a major disinfectant prior to returning it, and then it'll be ongoing as well. So I think the other thing to manage from a business standpoint, and again, we've had clear documentation. A lot of your staff have been itching to get away on vacation as much as, it's been, and some have been off and whatnot. But for those that have been working from home, the one thing we can't have as a business is onslaught of vacation requests come the summer. And I get it, and fall, but I get it. But our ability to service our clients will drop dramatically if everyone takes vacations simultaneously. So while our normal policy was pretty good, we wanted to make sure that we planned as best as possible. So we had everyone submit their vacation requests by this June 1st. And then we'll be just approving it for those that know what they're taking. This allows us just to plan better as a business and make sure that we've got full departmental coverage. And again, those that may consider traveling, I mean, right now it's obviously restricted by the government, but we want to make sure that there's clarity on when someone comes back, if they go abroad or even a different part of the country, what coming back looks like. Because if they go to a higher risk country, if that's permitted even by the government of Canada, would there be a mandatory quarantine period? We might impose something because we are able to adapt and work from home. We might implement a slightly stronger policy than, say, government of Canada, just because we want to be abundantly cautious about making sure that our staff are safe. The one thing we've also made very clear to our staff, if they're having any mental distress, talk to Sean and I. We'll adjust schedules, we'll accommodate. We want to do our best, because the reality is, and I'm sure most on this webinar felt it, you've had ups, you've had downs, and that's the reality, and so have your staff. So we want to make sure that, they know always on an ongoing basis, they can talk to us if they're just not having a great day. We'll work out things like time and lieu, etc. But we want to accommodate them from a mental health standpoint as best as possible. And then finally, we can't regulate how our staff act outside the office, but again, because we see ourselves as a bit of a small, tight-knit group, family, we're just reminding everyone to be cautious, right? So don't go to Trinity Bellwoods Park, and know that you're putting your fellow colleagues at risk. And so, because the greater interaction you have with other people, you're increasing that risk. And so we've walked through that avoid things like when we can do concerts and things like that. Avoid large crowds, at least for an extended period, until we know things are fine. And again, we can't enforce this, but it was a message I think that was well received. We all care about each other, and it's something that's important for us going forward. And again, I have all these documented in checklists as well. I've kind of generalized a bit, but I know we're going to do questions at the end, but that's me for now.
Chris, thank you. And I think what I really liked about the article and about this presentation is you thought about some other things that maybe weren't top of mind, which I think was really useful. That article you posted on LinkedIn, is that available as a link that we could send out as well? Because that was really well written.
I'll provide it in the chat here.
Okay, perfect. And then most of the things in your presentation are in that article as well, right?
Correct.
Okay, but if you want to supply the slides, we'll send those out afterwards as well. I'd like to switch over a little bit because I know that Jim brought it up and it's come up a couple of times about reinventing and pivoting your business and thinking about opportunities through this. And Jennifer MacLachlan from Cachet Supper Club really sees the opportunity to stand out and do something a little bit different. Realizing that the restaurant was closed and that she could have followed some of what everyone else was doing, she instead decided to embrace something a little different and really move forward. So I'd like you to tell us about that, Jennifer, and kind of what you learned and how much of that you think you might keep moving forward as you go through.
Thank you, Tracy, and thank you, everybody. And same disclaimer, I don't know anything about anything, so I'm just going to share with you exactly what I've gone through in the last couple months and take it for what it is and enjoy. It's been an interesting journey as an entrepreneur, and which I suggest all of us are in one way, shape, ourselves to go back and understand there's 4 phases of emergency management. There's mitigation, there's preparedness, there's response, and there's recovery. And I want to suggest right now in that emergency management phase, a lot of our industries are in the recovery phase, where I would suggest the food and beverage industry is still in the response phase. We have yet to standardize what the response looks like from a government perspective, from a municipality perspective, from a health and safety perspective, and frankly, from our industry partners. So that really took me back to my business plan, which I wrote, 3 years ago when I was taking over this business. And I rewrote a business plan because it's a brand new business. And my business plan I knew was to my financial audience, my business audience. And I took my pandemic plan and I looked it over and I said, well, that was a good first stab at it 3 years ago when you didn't really know a business that you had Cachet. And I really dove into my pandemic plan. And my pandemic plan is the one that gauges my staff, engages all of my staff. And others can suggest pandemic plan does a lot more than that, but that for me is the root cause of a business having a pandemic plan. When you have staff safely at work, when you have staff engaged, that you have a healthy business. Without that we're just not going to survive. And then I went back to my marketing plan and I thought, okay, now that I've changed my business plan and my pandemic plan, and I understand that I'm going to go through these 4 phases of my emergency response, and my industry is all up in arms because nobody has pandemic plans in any industry really in regards to this. And we innovated, focusing on my staff, my customer base, and what was going to get me through this emergency. There's 1 week, 1 month, understanding emergency management allowed me to know that this is immediately going to be a 12-month to 24-month cycle. There was no way I was going to be back performing with my regular Cachet Supper Club patio, all the fun in town, for a good, at the same revenue that I was used to, for a good 12 to 24 years, from an e-commerce standpoint, from supply chain, from regulations. And I really said, okay, how do I keep my customers engaged? How do I keep my staff engaged? How do I keep an industry afloat? by starting hopefully some sort of movement of some kind, just by leading as an entrepreneur. How do I do this? And I adopted Zoom, and which we're doing right now, and which we've all kind of adopted. And I've put in the place of a weekly staff meeting with my staff, and it's open. If they want to jump in and chit chat with each other, they can. Those that are back to work on a weekly basis, it's mandatory for them, and I do have 6 of them that work every single week. We have community engagement like I have ever discovered. We have small businesses that we're interacting with, and we're really supporting and bringing out. We have customer interaction through our new marketing plan. Instagram, we had to learn. I didn't know anything about social media. I depended solely on my staff for that, my daughter, really. And so we went in and we dove in, and in our first staff meeting, I said because my staff base all happens to be entrepreneurs by spirit, serving by day, just to save their money. So I had a unique staffing pool I want to suggest, and unique only to the food and beverage industry I want to suggest. We all have different post-college, where food and beverage is usually just a stepping stone to somewhere else. And I went back to them, and understanding that as a parent, I had been lecturing my children to get off their phone for quite some time. Understanding that most of that generation now are thriving in that environment. They're starting Shopify accounts. They're starting their own businesses. I then realized really quickly my staff engagement on the 12 to 24 hours, or months rather, was going to be key, because I need my staff to return, because my worry is my staff are all going to do so well in their own careers now post-COVID, as they've all innovated themselves, that how on earth am I going to keep them and keep my own business afloat? I'm going to have a whole new staff base, which we're family as well. So I had some I want to suggest unique challenges on that. And thanks, Tracy, we innovated. We started a virtual restaurant, and we're picking and choosing our words, and we're learning every day, and we're pivoting, and we're just allowing our customer base and our staff in a safe, contactless environment to do what they do best. And everyone's getting paid. Pardon me. Everyone's getting paid. Mental health has been addressed. Mental health has been addressed from a customer standpoint in the engagement of this model. Like, mental health has been addressed with my staff. Mental health has been addressed completely along the way. And I really, adopting, my recommendation in all of this innovation would be for anybody in the food and beverage industry to go back and freshen up their business plan, freshen up their pandemic plan with now the new, freshen up the marketing plan, adopt what the industry leaders are adopting, which is the online virtual training, the online marketing, the online, Unilever does it daily, videos of their product, and the customer interaction, the customer engagement, the community engagement, and roll that marketing plan back into your pandemic and your business plan. And I do believe that anybody can innovate themselves adopting those principles. I've seen it around already. I want to just bring up Glam Gal. They've been doing that in town now too. They're doing little spa glam, little virtual Zoom where you can still, and I see their business and I see it's growing. Deb's Dips has virtualized herself. We have Tracy from Trevina Wine. She virtualized herself. She's doing wine tastings now. She sells the LCBO. Everybody's virtualing. We've linked up with York Pride. So where a community wasn't going to have our Pride Festival, we're doing an interactive Pride box, and we're working with York Pride, and that's going to be on June 20th. So as a community, we're still going to be able to celebrate that event. Blooming Wellies, she's been doing amazing. And really, we partnered up on Mother's Day, and just being able to adopt, innovate, and bring in the core basics of our business, I think any of us will survive. I do, in closing, believe that this is a 12 to 24 month cycle. And I do suggest anyone on this call that is in food and beverage to really come to terms with that and really adopt them 12 to 24 month sustainable behavior. I hope that answers your question there, Tracy.
Well, thanks, Jennifer. I think like the key points that I'm hearing is, and because I was in very early, I attended one of your virtual cooking sessions, which was great. And you're adjusting on the fly, and you're giving yourself permission to make mistakes and take it all in stride. And I think that's what we have to remember. Those are the important things when you're constantly innovating and pivoting and having to change to adapt to this unknown world that we're in. And it's really taking the chances and looking at what might work and what's different. And I think you guys have really embraced that. How much do you think you'll keep if this comes back around and you know, you're allowed to have people back in the restaurant, back out on the patio? Like, will you still keep some of this?
Yes, this is going to be our product line till the end of time. And it is because that younger generation, it is because the millennials, the Gen Zers, this is the behavior that they've adopted in a lot of their life and a lot of their socializing. So I do think now, am I missing the restaurant and the normal interaction? Of course I am. But I'm also hung up, like the rest of the industry, on a formula where my costs, we have very low margin. And with the amount of risk that this pandemic is asking me to absolve onto myself, from an employee standpoint, from health and safety to my customers, from just a cash flow standpoint, and wants me to take on, it's going to be, it's a formula I don't understand how it's going to work. How I need to have the same amount of labor, the same amount or more, I would suggest, the same food cost or higher, I would suggest, with beef and what have you. The costs are going up because of the supply chain problems, and yet at a 10% profit margin-ish, expect me with the 30% to be able to survive and pay my bills. Every time I do that formula, I see a deficit. So this will absolutely help me build out that deficit, monthly cash flow deficit that I'm going to see to open. I do want to open. I am very nervous that, call it end of June, we're opening. That's still too much risk for me. It's too much risk versus the reward for my staff and my customers. And so I will keep this. I will keep it as we soft open. I will keep it as we develop our safety plans according to the industry, as we develop according to what I hope the government will help with some training and what have you. And I will continue this behavior going forward. But I do hope to reopen just like normal eventually. Absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you. I've seen some questions coming up along the side, but I think they've been answered as they went around. So does anybody else have any other questions for any of our panelists that you want to put up your hand for or put into the chat? I'll have to ask Jennifer and Tyler to help me keep your eyes open, because there's a couple.
I was just going to add, Tracy, I don't know if everybody's following the chat, but there had been quite a lot of questions about where to get PPE and the plexiglass. So Tyler has put a link in the chat, which is a list that the Chamber has put together of local businesses that are providing all of that stuff. So for those who haven't seen the chat but did have that question, that's all in there as well.
Great. And I think for me that I really like that we had a focus on a retail environment, or a place where people are coming in, Jim, into your organization, where customers are used to coming in and dropping in. And then we have professional services from Chris, Emanuel, because it made me think about how that fits here at the Chamber. And then Jennifer just talking about the innovation. So, I mean, those pieces work really well. We are going to do some speed networking. Tyler, can I?
I think
Chantel has
Chantal
her
has a
hand
quick
up.
question.
Oh, Chantal?
Yeah, thank you so much, Jennifer, Jim, and Chris. I really understand like a lot. Your presentations were really amazing. It made me really think about my business. I run a dance academy, and I have quite a difficulty wrapping my head around what possibly September might look like. And in our industry, we have in Ontario a network of dance studios that have banded together to get 300 signatures to present a reopening document to the government. And a lot of the health and safety stuff that you guys are all saying with the social distancing and it's a lot to take in, but the business model doesn't work. With the space that we have a huge overhead. And I like, Jennifer, what you're saying is go back to the planning stage of replanning your business. I'm going to have to rewrite my business plan. Even with the Zoom classes, I'd love to keep the Zoom classes, keep some unique ones. Like we've had some success with like a parent and teen stretch class where, the moms at home can stretch with their teens because kids are on their technology and they're not interacting as much with their parents. And the parents loved that one. The teens actually laughed and loved it because the teens were stretching more than their moms or the daughters. We had a dad and daughter ballet class. So that was one that was unique where I choreographed a little ballet thing on Zoom and the parents participated at home. So I think I'm going to have to rewrite a lot of stuff on Zoom. I just can't see opening the same way. And even with the plan that the dance studios have put in place with 6 feet apart square blocks, is they want us to take our studio into squares and have the kids dance in squares. What's the difference between having a square at home? Like at the end of the day, we're paying for this huge space. And that's the other challenge is I'm trying to wrap my head around, Jennifer, I was wondering, like you have a great facility there, so you're hanging on to your facility for when you are able to reopen, but still obviously making a good business. How am I going to do that? Like I don't see how I'm going to be able to keep my space. And we have a unique situation where there's a long hall where there's not a way to socially or whatever it's called physically distance in that hall to get into our facility. I mean, it looks like I'm going to have to open somewhere else. That's where I'm at.
Yeah. So Chantel, I mean, those are big challenges. And as I think Jim alluded to and Chris did, like everybody's got their own unique situations for sure, but it's good. We just kind of wanted to start the conversation here. And then it sounds like you might need somebody to kind of work.
I'm going to need a mentor. Anybody want to talk to me after? I'm going to need a huge brainstorm of how to do this.
If I could jump
Tyler,
in, if I
sorry.
could just jump in for a second, I mean, the reality is things are going to change, and if Zoom's working and you've got a base of customers, you may be able to cut out a whole bunch of expense. Your business may look a little bit different, but not having to have physical space, right? So it's challenging. You got to step back. You got to look at the math, but we're doing the same thing. We've actually put a work group together within our organization to figure out how this is going. What are we going to look like in 6 months from now and a year from now, and so we don't sort of try and fall back into the old stuff we were doing, and how do we capitalize on this stuff? So, look for a way to capitalize on it.
Yeah, I think even is Greg Moulton on the line from Matrix Emotion? Like you've been doing a great Zoom thing for kids as well, for families. I think there's been some really neat pieces coming out of this, and just how much of it will stay will be interesting as well, how it changes everything. Tyler, are there any more questions that you're seeing?
Nope.
Okay.
I think that's it.
So I would encourage people to stay around. I know we'll only be able to do short speed networking, but it is quite fun. We go in and just do small conversations with people. And I'll turn it to you, Tyler, to